Okay, we will start and respect all the people that came on time to our adventure today. For the people that already started the day with us, we travel, we've been in Tel Aviv, we've been in Art Street virtual tour, we've been in the ANU, the Museum of the Jewish People. We just finished a wonderful tour in the old city of Jerusalem. And now we are very lucky to have Alon. Alon Wald is the head of operation at Immunization Hill National Heritage Center. He's the son of Captain Rami Wald, Zichrono Livracha, who fought in the 50th Paratroopers Bridge in Jerusalem during the Six-Day War and was killed in action while leading the paratroopers into the Immunization Hill. Alon served his country as an officer in several elite IDF units, the Israeli Secret Service, Shabak, and oversee security operation in Israel and outside of Israel. He is now married to Iris and has 3 amazing daughters. Alon is the second generation that of his father legacy. Alon decided to dedicate his life to keeping the legacy of the liberators of Jerusalem and the city of Jerusalem. Alon, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, and regards from Israel. I regret to say that I've just received information that the Palestinians are shooting again south of Israel. I'm getting it online. I hope it's a mistake, but 3 areas in the south are now inside the bunkers, inside the shelters. I hope it's a mistake, but this is Israel. Are you ready for some decent Israeli accent now? I'll try to do my best. Really, it's quite a challenge. Normally, while speaking of Ammunition Hill and the legacy of the liberators of Jerusalem, I have the trenches of the battlefield of Ammunition Hill underneath my feet, and it's much more easier. Surely when I speak Hebrew, but now I think I could not find myself better ears than you guys overseas, because today your tour is going to run through my life, because I'm a 54-year-old man. I'm going to speak to you about values and about amazing things that are part of my life, like bravery and camaraderie and Jerusalem and Har HaBayit and the Kotel. But these words meant nothing to me when I started my life. So use your imagination at the beginning of my talk. Shrink me to the size of a 6-year-old boy. When I was running in the trenches of Ammunition Hill that you will see just in a couple of minutes, I was running in an amazing maze of 300 meters of trenches and bunkers without understanding the notion of the word war, Jerusalem, not even the word father. I lost my own dear father at Ammunition Hill. He was one of the paratroopers who stormed into Ammunition Hill, paved the way for entire nation to the reunification of Jerusalem. So I'll give you a little bit of history, a little bit of the battlefield whereabout, but eventually I'm going to lead you through my life, because my life is the life of a generation that started inevitably his life without having a father in our lives. And the questions we raised all our lives are the questions that you should raise as human beings, as Jewish people, as Canadians. With your permission, I will upload my display and start with the orientation. By the way, if you have any questions, you can write them down, and I hope that Ifat will be able to read them and notify me if there's something I'm missing or I can refer to. You can see everything? Okay, so these are 3 maps, and I'm going to start the story, the journey of Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem, In 1967, 2 weeks before the famous Six-Day War started, President Nasser, who ruled Egypt in the south, screamed all over the available media, radio and television, Israelis, I'm going to storm into Israel. I'm going to butcher you. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to throw you to the sea. I'm going to finish whatever Hitler could not do. His threats were very frightening. And I can tell you that my mother and my grandmother told me that they were digging actually trenches in front of their homes in the center of Israel. In Kfar Saba, in the city of Rehovot, in the city of Rishon LeZion, in Israel, everybody felt like on the edge of annihilation. They were terrified. It looked like a second Holocaust is going to fall on our heads. The Arabs are all around us are going to be very determined and they're going to kill us. And Israel, you see on the map, was a very narrow country. We can now raise the resolution. In the middle, you can see the map, which is the result of the 1948 Independence War. When the Independence War ended, nobody could decide who takes over Jerusalem. And two generals from both sides, actually, you can see on the map on the right, took the map of Jerusalem and chopped the city to two cities for 19 years. 8.5 kilometers divided Jerusalem. The west side was the Israeli side of Jerusalem, and the east side was the Jordanian side of Jerusalem. And there was a very long, famous corridor of Jerusalem that led to the heart of the Israeli side of Israel. It was a status quo nobody wanted to mess with. It couldn't have been helped, but the Kotel and the Har HaBayit and the Jewish quarters and the old city of Jerusalem was kept on the red side of the map. But it was a status quo, as I told you, nobody wanted to mess with. You can see the mark on the red on the top side. This is Ammunition Hill. Ammunition Hill actually sits as a bunker, as a stronghold, just a minute, as a stronghold on the north side of Jerusalem. Whoever takes Ammunition Hill, the ridge of Ammunition Hill, and that ends in the edge on the east on Mount Scopus and Givat HaMiftar and the French Hill, whoever controls the northern ridge can control anybody that wants to come from the area of Ramallah and Jericho and Jaffa from the west. And the Jordanians understood it, and for 19 years they held on Ammunition Hill, on the top of the hill, the elite commander units of the Bedouin legionnaires. You can see here how it looks today. It looked exactly the same 54 years ago when the paratroopers stormed inside, because IDF understood that if they are going to want to block the Jordanians from entering along with the Egyptians and the Syrians Israel towards Tel Aviv, they need to take over this region, they need to take over this place. Indeed, on Ammunition Hill, the paratroopers faced one of the toughest, most complicated battles they faced the past 73 years of our existence. But for me, as a child that was running in these trenches from whenever I remember myself, it was my childhood playground. I was playing hide and seek in these trenches. I didn't understand anything. And today, later on, I will show you, it is quite a worthy international memorial site and heritage site and educational site. But the beginning of my life was actually the Six-Day War. And in order to understand the beginning of the story, you really need to reflect on the notion Six-Day War. Israel is the only nation in the world in the modern era that within 6 days conducted a preemptive strike. It was very brave to do. It was something inevitable, but our government decided not to wait to be butchered, not to wait to the Syrian and the Egyptian and the Iraqi and the Jordanian armies to storm into Israel. And after 2 years of preparations, it was quite a secret, they launched all the IDF combat airplanes into the Sinai Peninsula, into Egypt, and demolished all the airplanes of the Egyptian army on the ground, on the airfields. It was something that was never done before. Until today, it was never done. And after 2.5 hours, we were busy in all surrounding borders, confronting the armies of the Jordanians in the east, the Syrians in the Golan Heights, and surely the Egyptians in the south. And within 6 days, we created something that was considered a miracle. against all odds. We tripled the size of Israel. We returned to the Holy Mountain, to the Jewish quarters. We liberated Jerusalem. And in order to understand what does it mean a full-scale war in Israel, we had about 6 of them. Whenever we need to to collide against so many armies, the famous IDF, which you see whenever you come to Israel, these young guys, boys and girls that wear uniforms, they are surely one of the best armies in the world, but they are not enough. They are not enough to collide against 4 Arab armies in 3 huge long fronts. Whenever this happens, we summon the reservists. 80% of the fighting units in Israel in times like this are the reservists. And who are they? Carpenters, grocery shop owners, lecturers, fresh grooms, proud young fathers, students, rabbis, who have to make time and again this unbelievable click in their mind when the army, the nation, knocks on their doors, shifting from being a lover to a tank commanding officer, from a carpenter to a combat engineer specialist like my father was. And this is my father, one of the famous liberators of Jerusalem. But for me, he was a proud father to a 10-month baby when his friends called him to war. For me, he was a carpenter, he was a civilian. For me, I lost him. And starting my life, understanding I do not have a father is quite a load, quite a burden to understand. And I can tell you that at the age of 6 and 7 and 8, when I ran in the trenches, when I learned to understand that I'm the only kid in elementary school, 3 classes we had there in Rishon LeZion, I was the only one without a father. I did not understand what does camaraderie and bravery means. I did not understand what does reservist corps means. I was angry with my father. I did not understand. Today I can tell you they could not do anything else, these guys, and we owe them so much. But my questions, my generation's questions, the questions we raised was something imminent. This is part of our legacy, because the story you're going to hear from me today is the story of a Jewish nation. This is not Sparta. We do not breed these guys to become martyrs, to sacrifice their lives. We worship peace and life. This is my country. This is our nation. And this is the context the story is going to be carried on now. Now, as I told you, 2 weeks before the war started, all the reservists of the IDF, all the potential fighting units, very secretly were summoned, and the paratroopers, the elite command units of our nation, were hiding in the orchards of Rehovot, being prepared to escort the preemptive strike and paraglide behind enemy lines in front of the Egyptians. But when they were not needed because of our aviator did, they told them, you guys, hop on the buses, you have 5 hours to get re-prepared. We are going to shift you to Jerusalem. At the beginning of the 6-day war, nobody wanted to mess with the issue of the Holy Mountain and the West Wall. They only had to block the Jordanians from storming from the east into Israel. My father, already a high-ranking officer, he was one of the first officers to understand they're going to shift the mission, and it was a great secret, but they are going to launch a preemptive strike. His first reaction, the first thing he did, because Israel is not like Canada. Israel is very, very small country. Surely you understand it. The orchards of Rehovot are about 20 minutes from the place my mother and myself were staying at my grandmother and grandfather place, because my mother, surely as everybody else was terrified. She was very afraid. So she went to live there. 2 weeks of preparation before going to war, my father decided if I have 5 hours, an hour of them will be to drive as fast as possible to Rishon LeZion and say goodbye. What you see here is the last photo I have for my father. My mother said, you know, out of nowhere there was a knock on the door and your father pops out on the door wearing his camouflage famous uniforms of the paratroopers. He never said anything. He never gave any explanation. He took you in his arms. He sniffed your head like he loved to do ever since you were born. He hugged you very deeply. He walked towards your grandfather. He gave you away to your grandfather, and my grandfather said to me over the years, your father approached me with you in his hands. And he said to me, God, my son, he gave you to me, and without giving any explanation, hugged your mother once again. This is a photo that my mother insisted to take, and he went away. and he never returned. And this shows something, because while detailing Ammunition Hill in the story of the 6-Day War, we do not refer to my father and his friends, the liberators, the admired liberators of Jerusalem, as machines of war, as gods upon earth. He needed me, he needed my mother, he needed to say goodbye. In Israel, everything is so close, not only physically or geographically, also emotionally. And this is part of the legacy of my father, because they were indeed human beings. Now, as I told you, 6 days, 2.5 days in Jerusalem, against all odds, the battlefield of Ammunition Hill, 4.5 hours, the dead of night of 6th of June, 5th and 6th of June, 1967, outnumbered, the paratroopers achieved something that actually break the Jordanian front. And 2.5 days after the Battle of Jerusalem started, tens of thousands of Jewish people were marveling the reunification of Jerusalem. Maybe you saw these photos before. You know, rabbis, shofarot, media, they were all there crying, chanting, praying all over the Jewish diaspora, the word Jewry. People in the synagogues were crying. It was a miracle. From the edge of annihilation, an epic triumph that nobody could really grasp. Try to understand the dissonance I'm talking about. From the edge of annihilation, entire nation afraid, and 2 weeks of preparations, 6 days of war, in an epic triumph. Everybody's dancing. In the middle, stuck 182 bereaved families that nobody could deal with them now, because everybody, the Minister of Defense, the government, the army, all preoccupied with the celebrations. And 182 guys are now gone, fallen soldiers. And who are they? The story of the liberation of Jerusalem is the story of 3 brigades of reservists. The enlisted young guys, young army, they were rushing toward the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. Who could you allocate to Jerusalem but 3 brigades of civilians 2 weeks before, of guys who all make this, shifting to being fighters. Now they are actually civilians again. Almost 100 of these 182 fallen soldiers are part of the brigade of my father. And the paratroopers, these guys, were already a big family. Some of them, the old fellows, were in the Palmach, fought the Independence War. Some of them fought the 56 campaign. Their wives knew each other. The parents knew each other. From the kibbutz, in the fields, they knew each other. And within 2.5 days, they lost 100 of their comrades in arms. They could not wait for the government. And in an amazing, spontaneous decision, 2 days after the first parade in front of the Kotel, they decided, their commanding officers, to meet at the apartment of Dr. King, the admired doctor of the brigade, who saved lives along with his medics and doctors 2 days, 3 days ago. And they decided to divide the families, the bereaved families, between themselves. And it so happened that a day afterwards, leaving the celebrations, everybody was pointing at them, the liberators of Jerusalem. They couldn't care less. And a day afterwards, there was a knock on the door of my mother's and father's apartment in Kfar Saba. My father was gone for 4 days already. And 10 salt of the earth, amazing paratroopers, stepped inside. They were now civilian once again. Nobody sent them. There was not an order. They decided to come. I was 10-month baby. My mother was in a state of shock. She lost the love of her life 3 or 4 days ago. And all these guys pointed at me, saying in so many words to my mother, maybe Alonchik, my nickname forever, lost a father. Here, 10 alternative guys, fathers, uncles, it doesn't matter. He will never step alone anymore. Now these words, this vow, this promise resonated in dozens and dozens of other apartments all over Israel. They came to the kibbutzes, to the south, to the Galilee, to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv. They stepped into the houses, the homes of the families of their comrades in arms, making this vow. And today, through me, I can tell you that what they did while approaching our families in a state of shock, when the instinct is to be part of the celebrations, While doing so, they implemented the same core values that led them to be victorious against all odds in all the fronts of Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. Camaraderie, bravery, leadership, commitment to a mission, creativity does not belong only to the IDF, does not belong only to the trenches of Ammunition Hill. They implemented the same human core values while approaching my mother. And I can tell you that this promise is relevant until today. I was raised on the labs. You can see these guys in the photos today. They are 80 years old. They are part of my life. They didn't ask for any titles. I couldn't care less if I was running in the trenches of Ammunition Hill after somebody could be my uncle or older brother or alternative father. It didn't matter. From them, without even knowing it, I started to create the puzzle of my absent yet so present father in my life. It was one heck of a bunch of fellas that you wanted to be related to. We owe them so much. They were so humble, but whenever I needed them as a child, they were there for me and for my generation. I can tell you that elementary school, when you need to summon your father to talk about his amazing, brilliant career, I didn't have any father. But there was a joke in my class when I brought the first one. Wow, you have 10 options, we have only one father. What will you bring us next year? Because each and every one of them became, colonels, high-ranking officers, parliament members, and never stopped implementing these values, and they never stopped being the idols of my life. And from them, while imitating them, indeed, I started to know my father, like mimics, small gestures, values, beliefs. I imitated them because I wanted to know my father so much, because he was related to an epic triumph, a story and I wanted to know the minute he left me, the minute he stormed into Ammunition Hill, who he was. Who am I? What do I stand for? And these guys, indeed, are part of my life and of the life of entire nation. Until today, we are utilizing them. We need them, and we call them once again because about 13 years ago, my fathers, with the truthful way that led me all my life, came to me and to my sisters and brothers forever, the orphans of Ammunition Hill and the liberation of Jerusalem, the other fronts, and said to us, you guys, we are 80 years old tomorrow. We are not going to be here forever. You heard the stories. You raised an amazing questions. Please come under the stretcher and become our voice. And 13 years ago, me and some of my sisters and brothers forever stepped in and decided that we owe them so much and we need to mediate the story the way I do today to you guys, because we understand English better than they do. We know the new media, but it couldn't be done without them. And 32 of them are volunteering until today at Ammunition Hill. They are proud grandfathers, proud commanding officers, proud veterans, and whoever wants to hear them can hear amazing stories of their legacy before the war, during the war, after the war. Some of them indeed are legend, walking legends, and some of them, some of their legacy can be stretched until the Holocaust and until all over the world, actually. Now, when I talk about bravery today, because I see that many of my listeners, viewers now are women, grandmothers, mothers, I can tell you that in Israel, bravery has another resolution I want to explore with you and to share with you. The bravery of our mothers. You can see here my amazing, amazing mother. She celebrated 80 about 3 months ago. She's a proud grandmother. She's the rock of my life. I love her so much. But I started a story when I was 10 months. I'm today 54. At the age of 40, I started to become one of the educators and the leaders of Ammunition Hill. Another age in my life is very important for me to share with you today. On the edge of our Independence Day, a day before, a day after our Memorial Day, the age of 17, when the army knocks on our door, most of us go to the army. And at the age of 17, after pursuing 17 years of trying to understand my father and to understand my legacy and my part, the army asks me, what are you going to do 18 behind the corner? Hell, I wanted to be a paratrooper. I really wanted to do it. It was my part, and I wanted to know my father while wearing the same red boots of the paratroopers, while sweating like him. I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted my fathers to be proud of me. I wanted my dear mother to be proud of me. But in Israel, such an amazing nation, we protect the bereaved families. And if somebody from first relation dies in combat, his successor, younger brother or son, cannot go to a combat unit by definition, by law. It is forbidden. The only option for me to become a paratrooper is to bypass this law and to approach my legal guardian. You can see here now, 90% of our lives, the legal guardians are our humble, sweet, dear mothers who are behind the scenes all those years. We always talk about our fathers, the live one, the wounded one, the fallen one. At the age of 17, you need to approach your mother and to tell her, Mommy, there's an annex in the law. There's an option for you, in other words, I didn't say it like this, to gamble your sanity in my life and to sign a waiver to the nation saying, it's on me, take my son, because this is the way he was raised to be. I will never forget me confronting my mother at the age of 17 without even realizing what the hell I'm loading on her shoulders. Mommy, please let me, it's my destiny, it's my wish, I want to become a servant, worthy servant to my nation. A mother that looks into her son's eyes in a situation like this, which is so unique and so difficult, saying to him, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to sign the waiver. She becomes this instant as brave as each and every one of the guys I can talk to you for hours about their legacy. But in order to understand to the full extent during these 2-3 holidays that we are now facing in Israel, who we are and what do we stand for, a mother that looks into her stubborn, egoistic boy that wants to become a mensch, saying to him, it doesn't matter. Hate me all your life. Do not speak to me ever again. I'm not signing the waiver. You will be alive. She is as brave. In the Israel nation, a non-Spartan by definition nation that worship peace and life, we never judge a mother that said yes. We never judge a mother that said no. It's all the same. It's okay. This is part of who we are. My mother, she was brave enough or crazy enough, I don't know, to say yes. And 3 weeks before I was supposed to go to the army, to Tel Aviv, to Tel HaShomer, the very famous recruiting camp of the IDF, I was forced to walk with my mother inside an office of a lawyer on behalf of the Ministry of Defense, who had to see that my mother's being of sound mind and body is not being intimidated or forced or manipulated. And he looked into my mother's eyes, saying to her, Ginat, are you absolutely sure you know what you're doing? And my mommy said, yes, with the jaws locked like this. She hated every minute. And she signed the waiver, sending me to 5 years in the army that she couldn't sleep. I did my share. I ran all the way. I became an officer of the elite command units of the paratroopers, Sayeret Tzanchanim. I was the first for my crew to become an officer. I was one of the founding officers of the very famous Magellan unit in Israel. Indeed, the Shabak found me when I finished the army and I became an air marshal of El Al. I kept on landing all over the world, guarding airplanes of El Al. I was the security officer in charge of the Israel embassy in Cairo, Egypt. One heck of a closure. I was in Vienna for 4 years, in charge of the security of the embassy over there. All these years, my father was here on my shoulder, my conscience. My fathers were behind me, guiding me, guarding me all my life. So while talking about bravery, it is not only in the front. My mother, indeed, she is very brave. Now I'm reaching to something which is very unique to me because I didn't know that when my father left the apartment, saying goodbye, hugging me, sniffing my head to go to the war, he took from his pocket a postcard, very famous in Israel, an army, a special postcard, and he wrote to me something. And only 40 years afterwards, when I became in charge of the ammunition hill, we had an excuse to approach again our families because we produced movies, short clips of our fathers. And I went to my uncle saying to him, do you still have anything for my father that he did not find, he did not give me? And he said to me that he is keeping in some envelopes of my father. And he showed me at the age of 40 what he couldn't show my mother because this letter came to us 4 days after my father was already killed. And when my uncle saw it, he couldn't show it to my mother because she was in a state of shock. I was too young and he forgot about it. And you can see here, at the age of 40, when I came to my uncle, what was the last words of my father to me, to my sweet and kind son and my love? Hello and many kisses. It seems to be that it's coming and it could have been helped. We must fight. I came over yesterday, but I couldn't say anything. Alone, be a man and take care of your mom, grandpa, and grandma. Meidele, this is how he called my mother. Be a fighter and take care of everything and everyone until we shall return, and we will return fast. See you soon and lots of kisses, Rami. Try to imagine, at the age of 40, getting the last farewell from my father. Once again, they were human beings and they needed us. I will never know for sure if my father thought about me when he stormed into Ammunition Hill. If I was a burden on his shoulder, if I was an asset. But surely, these guys, 99% of their lives were human beings, were lovers, were so much else. And bravery and camaraderie does not come with the ranks and with the uniforms. Each and every one of these guys brought to the war, time and again, their family, the synagogue, the kibbutz, the shul, the yeshiva, the youth movement, the university. This is who we are, and this is how we happen to win wars. So today, Ammunition Hill is a place that we decided not to focus only on the 1% of the end of the life of our brave fathers. Today we are leading kids into the trenches without mentioning death. We're leading them and talking about their life, their future, their option to become resilient, to become brave heroes in their youth movements, in their schools. And because we decided to do so, the past 10 years was one heck of a journey for all of us. And Ammunition Hill today is not only the trenches. Thanks to, by the way, JNF stepped inside 12 years ago because we had the vision, we had the needs, but we did not have the funds. And when JNF stepped in, they understood that we are doing something remarkable that can bond the word Jewry with us, and they helped us a lot. And today, Ammunition Hill, as I told you, we are talking about inspiring, amazing stories in the trenches, but we have a brilliant, state-of-the-art, a modern museum which is stretched underneath the surface, 400 meters. And inside, you can wear headsets and you can listen in 6 languages: French, English, surely other very famous languages. And you can walk through the premises and see amazing, unique animations and creations and music and clips that were created in order to allow people that come from all over Israel and all over the world to see what we are talking about in the most vivid and creative way. We have an amazing diorama that shows in 19 minutes to 2 buses, 120 kids can be there, and they can see my fathers, the liberators of Jerusalem, mediate a story when spots from the ceiling show them what happened in a 3D display in Jerusalem in a way that they can understand, because the story needs to be told. We also finished about 3 years ago, right on the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem, one of the most unique commemoration halls in Israel. On the national level, it is indeed special because for the first time in Israel, we wanted to show people, the visitors, how did 182 people lived and not how they died. We know how they died, but the widest common denominator of 182 amazing photos that the families gave us, they show us how did Israel looked in the early 60s. Each and every one of these guys were a civilian 2 weeks before. Each and every one of them had to make this click and say goodbye to his students, to his workers, to his colleagues, to his wife, to his mother and father, to his father, to his sister or grandfather or brother. And the story we tell there is once again not only about the 1% of the lives of these guys, but of the 99% of the lives of amazing people who are the founding fathers of our nation, of the core values of Israel. Now, doing that the past 10 years resulted in a miracle that nobody actually planned. Another option to see, we have a lot of exhibitions, photo exhibitions. I can talk about them for hours, but it's not part of the story. The story that I want to share with you today, which elevated Ammunition Hill within 5 years, the last 5 years, from a worthy national site to an international worthy site, was this miracle. And this miracle, the name of this wall is the Jewish Combatants Honoring Wall. About 10 years ago, when I led a family from the United States into the trenches, talking about the bravery of my father and his friends, they said to us, "You guys, our uncle liberated a concentration camp. He was a major at the United States Army. He stormed into a concentration camp in Poland, and he screamed all over the premises, 'I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew. Can he be cherished here?' And I said to them, 'You guys, it's not our mandate.' But a month afterwards, a Russian family came to us and said, 'You guys, what you are talking about, the same values you're talking about, our grandfather implemented these values while fighting the Nazis on behalf of the Soviet Union Army. Can he be cherished here?' Soon enough, we understood, along with the JNF, that this is something that had to be dealt with. And I'm talking to you today about more than 500 names of people, Jewish people, who fought on behalf of so many nations in the world. Some of them never set foot in Israel. I'm talking about people who fought on behalf of the Indian Army, the United States Army, Canadian Army, Australian, Czechoslovakian Army, Russian Army, surely Israel Army. People understood that when we talk about these core values, they need to be part of them. So any family from all over the world that has a relative that needs to be on the wall because he implemented the same values can add another name, another plaque to this wall. And this is something nobody planned, and the evolution of this wall the past 6 or 7 years was something unbelievable. And I was so proud to lead visitors to Ammunition Hill and to show them this wall, because this wall actually shows the whole world that Jewish people are not only book writers and rabbis and lawyers and physicians and high-tech brilliant minds. Jewish people, time and again, were brave supporters, humble servants of their nations, and this wall shows it. And nowadays, when you will visit, in a couple of months, I hope so, in Israel again, after that the COVID-19 will be over, come and see Ammunition Hill and be so proud to see that we are indeed one people, one nation. Now, I chose another thing to close the circle with you. You can see many evidence of this amazing wall that I'm so proud of. I'm going to make a closure and connect all the dots to you while showing you that my father, as a human being, was a mountain climber enthusiast. About, I think, 50 or 60 years ago, he started about 60 years ago, he wanted to mount any possible peak in the world. He was the first unofficial backpacker in Israel, and whenever there was a mountain he could mount, wanted to do it. He was one of the first Israelis to mount the Fujiyama in Japan. He was one of the first Israelis to reach the highest mountain in the Alps, Mont Blanc. And when he was sent 57 years ago to help build the imperial army of Haile Selassie in Ethiopia, somebody told him there is the Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. And he climbed this mountain. And when I found out about the lost box of my uncle with all the papers of my father, I saw his diary. And I understood that he saw there one of the most beautiful sunrises in the world. And he wrote about it. And while wanting to know my father all my life, I wanted to see the same sunrise he saw. And in order to make a closure, I decided to approach two of my three daughters. This is Noam and this is Amit. Today, Noam, she's 28. Amit, she's 26. Amit here, she's an officer in the IDF. Noam, a security officer of El Al. They are both very feminine, but they well know about their grandfather. I told them, do you want to come with me to see the same sunrise your grandfather saw? Because I really want to understand and to know him. And to my surprise, they said, by all means, Daddy, we're going to come with you. This is there today, and we held 4 months of preparations. It was a year and a half ago. And when the paratroopers heard that Alon is going to lead an expedition to make a closure with his father, another 16 paratroopers, 3 generations of paratroopers decided to come along with us. It was very difficult preparation. It's not an easy mountain, 6,000 meters. And before the COVID-19 started, about 2 months before, we were in Tanzania, and we went through the same route my father explained in details that he did 57 years ago, along with 19 paratroopers, trying to make a closure to understand what are the limits that these amazing fellows cross time and again, proving to us that they are human beings but very tough ones. We wanted to see the same sunrise. You can see here my daughter on the 4th day looking at the camera as if saying, "Daddy, what the hell were you thinking?" It was so cold, it was so difficult, it was so challenging. Whatever I did all over my life, it was that difficult. And being a father to 2 daughters was even more difficult to me. But on the 5th day, we were gazing of one of the most beautiful sunrises you could possibly imagine, because while looking at the sunrise from 6,000 meters, it's not a round circle of the sun. The rounded situation of the globe, you actually see the sun being lit from the right to the left, 15 minutes of seeing a fire. We saw the same sunrise my father saw. We did not even have the oxygen to cry. It was unbelievable to see it. And it took us another 2 hours to reach the peak. And this is the famous peak of the Kilimanjaro. Escorting me all the way, there were 2 Rami Valds, 2 cousins that were born after my father fell, and they are carrying the name of my father, Rami Vald. 2 of my daughters, so many other paratroopers. We were hugging, we were dancing, we had no air in our lungs. And while looking at this board, I took this. You can see here the mark of the Israeli flag and ammunition hill. It was in my pouch. I stuck it in the frozen logs of the lumber of the tree, of the wood, and from my guts came something I never planned to say, but I was crying and I was saying in Hebrew, "Abba, עכשיו אני יודע, Daddy, now I know." I knew that this generation indeed was pulled to the by values and by challenges that we need to be so thankful for them. But today I can tell you for sure that I really do know my father much more than so many other kids know their own father, alive father, taken for granted father, that comes every night 9 p.m. from his amazing work. He's there. My father was never there. I had to extract him from my mother, from his comrades in arms. I wanted to know him, and today I'm so proud to tell you that I truly do know him. But to really end the story, one of the liberators of Jerusalem heard that we are going to pay homage to his dead friend. He said to us, "I'm going to come with you." At the beginning I said to him, "Yaki, you cannot do it, please. You're too old. It's not it does not worth the challenge and the risk." And he said, "If you're going to do it, I'm going to do it." And Yaki Chetz, who received, this is the warmest hug of my life. We carried all the flags of Israel and the brigades, but Yaki Chetz, he received Medal of Valor at Ammunition Hill. He was a private, and he decided to come along with us, and against all odds, being so humble and so brave, he did all the way along with us. He reached the same board, raising his head as if saying to you guys, to me, to Israel, "This is who we are, this is who we stand for. Against all odds, believe in yourself, and you can make miracles." And I'm so proud to be able to tell you that another father of mine climbed all the way along with me. So this is me and my father, more or less in the same spot. It's a camouflage, I did it to be proud of. And to end the story, I can tell you that when my mother decided to sign the waiver and to allow me to become a paratrooper, she said something amazing that I will end the story saying it. She looked into my eyes and she said to me, "Alonchik, I'm going to sign the waiver. Just promise me not to be as stupid and as brave as your father. Listen to what comes from the guts of a Yiddish mama in a situation like this. a prayer, a naive prayer, please take care of yourself because it's too difficult for me. And my lesson to anybody that comes to Ammunition Hill, surely to you guys overseas, you surely know, you read books, you are visiting all over the United States, Canada, Europe. You understand that histories of nations are being carved by people who are walking between stupidity and bravery. And my lesson to you today, through my mommy, through my mother, is that you never need to be on the edges to make a miracle happen. Believe in yourself. Leave your comfort zone and you can make miracles. And I'm saying the same words to young kids in Israel. I do not urge them to become fighters. I'm telling them today, tomorrow, believe in yourself. Leave your comfort zone and you can make miracles. And today, when Israel situation is so polarized and everybody is fighting everybody else, at Ammunition Hill, we are seeking and presenting the widest common denominator of a nation, of hardcore values of our nation. And people believe us, and people come to Ammunition Hill to be inspired, not only through the trenches, but through the stories of human beings. So I can surely talk to you for hours, and I really urge you, when you come to Israel, pay a visit to Ammunition Hill. When the COVID-19 will be over, I'll be more than glad to come to your communities. I'm doing that for 6 years already, all over the United States, meeting your kids, meeting your communities, meeting synagogues, JCCs, conveying the message that we need you the same way you need us, and we need not argue so much. We need to love each other and be proud of our legacy. The legacy of Jerusalem, the legacy of Israel is yours, the same as it's mine. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer. I hope it was clear. It's much easier for me in Hebrew.
Alon, it was inspiring. It was really, what a story. Thank you very much for sharing your personal story with all of us. If anyone has a question, please, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
It was an outstanding talk. You did a fantastic job.
Alon, you drank the same coffee as the previous guy.
No, it's tea with cinnamon.
Oh, okay.
Any questions?
You guys take good care of yourselves and your safety and your health. We are all vaccinated here. I hope it will be the same with you, but until then, have patience.
Alon, thank you very much. We hope, all of us hope to come to the Givat Tachmoshet. It's easier to me to say it like that. Ammunition Hill soon. And thank you very much for sharing your personal story. It was really touching and emotional story.
Thank you so much. Where does God fit in? Somebody wrote here. God was here. Well, I think that miracles are partly your doing and partly God's,
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you all in 10 minutes in our next and final tour for the day, the Kotel Tunnel tour, the Western Wall tour. So see you later. And again, Alon, toda raba.
Chag Atzmaut Sameach, everybody.
Chag Atzmaut Sameach.
Toda Alon, you are an amazing, amazing speaker. Thank you so much.
Oh,
amazing.
Very reassuring. Thank you.